My stepdaughter said at the moving truck office, "We don't need him on the contract." She didn't raise her voice, didn't spit it out like an insult. Came quiet, matter of fact, like she was naming a fact I should have already known. I watched the man behind the counter blink twice, his pen hovering in midair. Then he looked at me. I didn't correct her. I didn't even clear my throat. I just nodded. Not out of agreement, but recognition. That sentence had been waiting years to be spoken. It finally found its moment. A hot, fluorescent-lit room. Clipboards. A ballpoint pen. A shrug of finality. And Claire, my wife, standing just to Amanda's left. Silent. Hands folded in front of her like a guest at a funeral. I told the man to print out a separate contract for my move. Paid the full rate in cash. Booked the earliest available date. And I walked out. 2 days later, Amanda was still sitting cross-legged on a box of winter clothes. Claire kept calling the dispatch number. The truck never came. My name's Nathan. I'm 44 years old. For the past 19 years I've worked as a systems engineer in Denver, the kind of job where people only notice you when something breaks. It used to be a point of pride. Staying behind the curtain, solving problems quietly. But over time, I realized I dragged that same instinct into my home. Fix things. Don't complain. Don't expect applause. 6 years ago, I married Claire. She had a daughter, Amanda, college-aged, spirited, independent when it suited her. That's how she introduced herself the first time we met. "I'm not looking for a new dad," she'd said with a smile. "Just so we're clear." We were sitting in a booth at one of those rustic, overpriced brunch places Claire loved. Amanda had ordered 2 sides, both avocado, and spent the entire meal on her phone. She was 22 at the time. A year later, she moved into our house after a breakup. Claire said it was temporary. A few weeks, maybe a month. That was 4 years ago. She never really unpacked. Just floated between jobs, between semesters, between relationships. She kept her things in boxes. Claimed it was easier that way. Easier to leave. Easier to reset. She reset often. I didn't complain. I paid the rent. Kept the fridge full. Added her to the family phone plan. Took the spare key off my own ring and handed it to her without a word. That was the start. The tuition for design classes came next. She promised to pay me back. She didn't. Dropped the program 2 months in. Claire said she was still adjusting. That she needed support, not structure. I asked when support became subsidy. Claire didn't answer. Then came the Honda. Amanda's car was on its last legs. Co-signed a lease. Lowered the insurance deductible. Paid her first 3 months. She got a parking ticket. Never paid it. I covered it when the DMV sent a warning. She said nothing. I started noticing small things. Amanda never thanked me, not really. She'd post photos of fresh sushi nights on Instagram, nights I paid for. I'd see captions like, "Just me and mom," under pictures I'd driven them to. I was always the background. Never the subject. It wasn't hate. She didn't throw tantrums or scream. That would have been honest. No, Amanda used indifference like a scalpel. A precise, intentional carving away of acknowledgement. I once offered to review her resume. She rolled her eyes. "You're too involved," she said. "You don't need to be in every part of my life." I said nothing, just closed my laptop and nodded. That was the last time I offered help without being asked. From that moment on, I dialed it all back. Quietly, deliberately. First, I deleted her secondary Netflix profile. Then the Blue Apron subscription I'd been footing for months. Then the dental plan under my name. Each cancellation felt like peeling tape off my own skin. Slow, reluctant, but necessary. When I pulled my name off her car insurance, Claire stared at me like I'd kicked a dog in the street. "You're being harsh," she said. "She's still figuring things out." I wanted to ask, "Is there a deadline on that?" But I didn't, because I knew what she meant. Claire wasn't defending Amanda. She was protecting herself. From watching her daughter fail. From acknowledging that a roof and warm meals weren't helping Amanda grow. They were keeping her small. That house, our house, had started to feel like a hospice for ambition. A A quiet place where dreams came to die slowly while someone else paid the bills. And I was the one paying them. What hurt more than Amanda's detachment was Claire's silence. The way she let it all slide. I'd come home from 12 hours at the office to find Amanda on the couch, binge-watching shows she never paid for, eating groceries she never bought. Claire would be in the kitchen, talking about new curtain rods, as if we were still building something together. But we weren't building anything. I was reinforcing a house that leaned harder every year. I never expected Amanda to call me Dad. I wasn't delusional. But respect, even basic recognition, felt like it was evaporating day by day. I once came home early. Amanda was on a Zoom call with her friend. She didn't know I could hear. She laughed and said, "Oh, this place? It's just where I crash. My mom's husband pays for everything. Not Nathan. Not my stepdad. Just the guy who pays." I sat in my car for 20 minutes after that. The engine off. Hands still on the wheel. That night, I ate dinner in silence while Claire and Amanda talked about curtain fabric and tapas. No one noticed I hadn't spoken in over an hour. I was invisible, but indispensable. That's the worst kind of prison, when they don't see you but they still need you. I had thought maybe one day things would shift. That time would round out Amanda's edges. That Claire would stop making excuses. That gratitude would find its way through the cracks. Didn't. The more I withdrew, the more they filled the space with each other. I became a sponsor, not a spouse. A card swipe, a Wi-Fi password. So when Amanda said at that truck office, "We don't need him on the contract," she wasn't making a decision. She was just verbalizing the one they'd made years ago. Together. And Claire didn't flinch. Didn't speak. Just stood there. That's what made me leave the way I did. Quiet. Clean. Done. My truck came on a cold Saturday morning, exactly on time. A quiet crew. Efficient. I had labeled every box. I even tipped extra. By noon, I was gone. By Sunday, Claire had called me 10 times. Amanda texted to say I betrayed them, that I'd abandoned the move. I didn't respond. Instead, I logged into every account with my name on it, the utilities, the water, the internet, the renter's insurance, and I closed them all. Clean breaks. Zero balances. That house wasn't mine anymore. And I wasn't going to keep paying for a place where I wasn't even considered necessary enough to be listed on a piece of paper. If I wasn't part of the contract, then I wasn't part of the cost. And if Amanda wanted to be an adult, she could learn what it meant to sign her own name, without my hand beneath hers. A month later, they decided to move. Not because they had to, but because, in Amanda's words, it was time for a fresh space. I offered to help. Even said I'd pay for the truck. I shouldn't have. Claire looked hesitant when I mentioned it. Amanda didn't. She tilted her head like she was tolerating a background noise. "We've got it," she said. "You don't need to worry about this." But I did worry. I always had. Even when they told me not to. Because Claire and Amanda had never moved a house before. Not really. I'd always been the one to load the boxes, sort the paperwork, book the services, tape the corners of every furniture leg. I didn't mind the labor. I minded the lie that I was somehow only involved when they needed biceps, not presence. Still, I drove them to the moving office. Sat between them, quiet, watching them fill out intake forms with borrowed pens and blank expressions. Then the man behind the desk asked the most basic question in the world. One I'd heard 100 times over the years, on leases, bills, warranties, registrations. Who'll be the primary on the paperwork? Amanda didn't even look up. "We don't need him on the contract. Not Nathan. Not my mom's husband. Just him." Claire stayed silent. Again. That silence was louder than Amanda's words. I turned. Looked at her for half a second. She didn't flinch. Didn't move her mouth. Didn't even blink. Just let it sit there. Like the decision had already been digested. So I stood. Turned to the man behind the counter. "I'd like to file my own move. Separate. Can we do that?" He hesitated. Looked between us. "Sure," he said slowly. "2 contracts. Just one," I said. "Mine." I paid in full. Requested earliest availability. Gave them a clean forwarding address. a one-bedroom downtown apartment leased under my name only. Then I walked out without another word. That was a Thursday. By Saturday morning, my truck arrived. Right on time. The full crew. I packed my life in 4 hours and watched the rest of the house shrink in the rearview. Theirs never came. Sunday dragged like an injured animal. By 10 a.m., Claire had called 6 times. By 2:12, Amanda sent a single message, venom bottled into one sentence. You left us stranded. You betrayed us. No, we're stuck. No, the truck's late. No, can you help? Just you betrayed us. That word, betrayal, lingered in my ear longer than it should have, like I had violated some sacred pact. But betrayal only exists between equals. I hadn't betrayed anyone. I just stopped pretending. By that evening, I was drinking black coffee in my new apartment. No dishes in the sink. No noise. Just my own breath and the low hum of the fridge. I opened my laptop, pulled up every utility login I still had access to. Electricity, canceled. Water, closed. Internet, cut. Their forwarding address hadn't been filed. That was their oversight, not mine. I opened the insurance app. My name was still listed on the house. Policy paid through the end of the month. I canceled automatic renewal. Sent the confirmation to Claire's email. Then I pulled up the renter's policy Amanda had begged me to cover. Said it would only be for the first year. That was 2 years ago. Canceled. I felt nothing. No guilt. No triumph. Just completion. I had spent 6 years building a house where I wasn't a person. Only a platform. A man-shaped infrastructure. My name was useful when a payment was due, when a contract needed signing, when a leak needed fixing. But in the moment of actual decisions, I became vapor. They wanted a life without my name. Now they had it. Monday morning I woke early. Made eggs the way I liked them, hard yolk, black pepper, nothing on the side. I drank hot coffee and didn't have to explain why I didn't feel like talking. I left dishes in the sink and didn't feel like a suspect in my own kitchen. When I got to work, a colleague noticed the change. You look lighter, she said. Did you take a vacation? I nodded. Something like that. Because peace, when it finally lands, doesn't feel dramatic. Feels like silence. And for the first time in years, I was hearing it clearly. They were still sitting on boxes. I knew that because Claire sent a photo. It wasn't a plea, it was an accusation. 2 people on the floor, surrounded by sealed cardboard and plastic totes. 1 dog-eared chair. A half-empty bag of takeout. No truck in sight. Her caption read, "This is what you left behind." I didn't reply, because she was wrong. That wasn't what I left behind. That's what I had carried. For years. Alone. And now the weight was where it belonged. That night, I sat on my balcony. Just me and the wind. No footsteps overhead. No lights left on in rooms I didn't enter. I watched downtown flicker with 1,000 strangers' lives and felt, for the first time in a long while, like mine belonged to me again. My phone buzzed around midnight. Amanda again. We needed you, and you walked away. I stared at it, let it ring, then turned it off. Because that's not what happened. They erased me. All I did was stop writing myself back in. Monday, 9:12 a.m. I logged into the office VPN. Claire was still calling. The night before, she had left 5 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them, just watched the icons pile up. Amanda had stopped texting by then. Her last message was short. You're not a man. You're a coward. I read it twice, then deleted it. Not out of anger, but because it finally made sense. Amanda didn't want a stepfather. She wanted a servant who didn't ask questions. And when that servant stepped off the porch, she called it betrayal. But it wasn't betrayal. It was self-respect. I sat through my meetings like a man resurfacing from deep water. My screen shared clean code. My hands didn't shake. And for the first time in months, I didn't grind my teeth when someone asked for a change last minute. It was strange, the peace. A kind of silence that only comes when you realize no one can drain you anymore. Later that day, I heard from the moving company. Claire had tried to plead their case, but without a signed contract or deposit, they had nothing to go on. The truck was never booked. The date slot had passed. The office clerk said Claire became emotional. Amanda had raised her voice, demanded they fix it. But life doesn't run on emotions or demands. It runs on contracts, commitments, signatures, and they hadn't wanted mine. By Wednesday, Amanda was crashing at a friend's. I know because Claire left a message about it. Her voice low, hoarse from lack of sleep. She's on someone's couch. We don't even have a bed set up. I made dinner that night. Pasta with garlic and oil, simple, cheap, mine. Ate in front of the window, no television, no second fork. I didn't feel cruel. I felt released. I kept remembering Amanda's words at the truck office. We don't need him on the contract. Well, now she knew what life felt like without me on the paperwork. Claire showed up on Friday. No warning. Just a knock on the door, not urgent, not timid. A polite thud against a door that didn't belong to her anymore. I opened it and found her standing there in old jeans and a sweater she used to sleep in. Hair pulled back. No makeup. Her face wasn't angry. It was confused. "You moved," she said, as if just realizing it. "You actually moved." I didn't respond. Just stepped aside and let her enter. She walked in slow, like she was entering a museum. Noticed the small things, a single coat on the rack, one pair of shoes. No second toothbrush in the bathroom. No framed photos. It was a life stripped of decoration. Just utility and air. "Where's your stuff?" she asked. "This is my stuff." She turned. Looked at me like I'd said something indecent. Then the tears came, not the wild kind, but the quiet ones. The kind that sneak down without asking permission. "You promised to be part of this family," she said. I nodded. "I was." "You said you'd be there for her." "I was." "No," she snapped. "You were just waiting for her to fail. You never believed in her. You were always looking for a reason to pull away." I wanted to laugh, but I didn't, because it was a strange thing being blamed for the absence they'd engineered. "You think I wanted this?" I asked. "You think I spent 6 years trying to earn your daughter's contempt?" Claire shook her head, arms folded, the way she always did when she wanted to believe she was right, even when she wasn't. "She's young. She's 26. She's still." She told a stranger I wasn't needed, and you said nothing. That silenced her. Finally, I walked to the window, looked down at the streetlights flickering on. "She made her choice," I said. "You did too. I just finally made mine." Claire's face twisted. Not with rage, but something deeper. Disappointment. Not at me. At herself. "I didn't think you'd go through with it." That was the truth. Wasn't it? They'd all assumed I would stay. That I'd keep paying, keep fixing, keep folding myself into corners. Just grateful to be tolerated. She looked around the room once more, then turned to the door. Her voice low. "So what now?" I didn't answer. I didn't owe her one. She left without saying goodbye. The next day, Amanda sent a voice message. Her tone wasn't angry anymore. It was something worse, entitled, "You're not really gonna abandon us," she said. "You're the adult." I played it twice. Let the words sink in. You're the adult. That's what they say when they need you, not when they respect you. She was right, in a way. I was the adult. That's why I left. Because adults don't live in homes where their names don't matter. Adults don't sign checks where they're told they're irrelevant. And adults don't stay where they aren't wanted just to be used. I still get bills forwarded to me sometimes, old ones, sent by mistake. Amanda's cell service, expired subscriptions, unpaid fees. I toss them in the bin. There's no one else to forward them to. The man who used to handle it, he doesn't live here anymore. Now I live alone. A one-bedroom with laminate floors and a small balcony. No joint accounts. No overlapping obligations. Just a single name on every page. Mine. There are no hallway arguments. No whispered complaints about how involved I am. No cold breakfasts where gratitude is treated like a favor. Just quiet. Just air. And most importantly, no illusions. I gave them every chance. And when the time came to sign, they made it clear. They didn't want me on the contract. So I walked away, not to punish, not to wound, but to be free. Amanda's voice message sat in my inbox for a week. I never answered it. I never deleted it either. Sometimes I'd replay the last sentence just to remind myself what kind of world they lived in. You're the adult. Not thank you. Not I'm sorry. Just you're the adult. It wasn't an apology. It was an instruction. A demand wrapped in faux responsibility. What she really meant was, you're the one who's supposed to keep giving even when we spit in your face. But here's the part no one talks about. The part they don't put in therapy books or soft sitcoms or blended family guides. Being the adult doesn't mean being the sacrifice. Claire tried again 2 weeks later. She didn't knock this time. She buzzed the intercom, waited 5 seconds, then let herself in when someone else left the building. She came up the stairs slowly. I heard her feet on the concrete. Each step a guilty echo. When I opened the door, she didn't speak. Just looked past me into the apartment like she was searching for proof that I hadn't started a new life yet. There's no furniture, she said finally. There's enough. She stood there in a beige coat that didn't suit her. Makeup half done. Hair combed back too tight. She looked smaller. I wanted to talk. In person. I let her in. She sat at the edge of the chair like a guest in a waiting room. She didn't touch anything. Didn't take off her coat. How is she? I asked. Claire looked up. Caught off guard. Amanda? No, I said. The dog. Her face broke for a moment. Almost smiled. Then straightened. She's fine. I nodded. She moved into a friend's spare room. Just until she gets things settled. She's looking for work. She could have done that 3 years ago. She's trying now. I didn't say what I was thinking. That effort born out of necessity isn't the same as growth. She looked at me like she wanted something. Not reconciliation. Not forgiveness. Just understanding. She didn't mean it, she said. I shook my head slowly. Yes, she did. Claire started to speak. I raised a hand. I don't need the apology, Claire. I need you to understand what it did to me. She looked confused, like she didn't realize there'd been a wound. I stood up, walked toward the window. Outside, the city was moving again. Cars, people, life. None of it waiting. You stood there, I said. When she said I wasn't needed. You didn't argue. You didn't blink. You didn't even shift your weight. Claire exhaled through her nose. It all happened so fast. It wasn't fast. It was built. Over years. Brick by brick. Every time you let her dismiss me. Every time I had to repeat myself through your voice just to be heard. Every time you told me I was overreacting. She didn't respond. Just stared at her hands. Do you remember? I asked. When I fixed her laptop at 2 a.m. So she wouldn't fail that online class? Claire nodded. She never even said thanks. And you told me not to make a big deal out of it. She was stressed, she said. No, she was ungrateful. And you defended it. She blinked fast. Her mouth opened, then closed. That house, I said, was a system, and I was the battery. You just assumed I'd keep running no matter how often I got drained. Claire swallowed. Her voice cracked when she spoke again. She's my daughter. I know. I didn't want to choose. You did choose. Silence. After that, we talked logistics. There were still things in my name. An old storage unit, a duplicate credit card I'd forgotten existed. I told her to cancel them. Everything left in the storage unit was theirs. She nodded, eyes red, nose pink, voice low. She never asked to come back. That surprised me. I think somewhere deep down, she knew the bridge wasn't just burned. It had been dismantled piece by piece by her own inaction. Before she left, she stood in the doorway for a long time, like she was trying to memorize the man who used to carry her world. Do you hate us? She asked. I looked her in the eye. No. A pause. I just finally stopped pretending we were a family. Amanda hasn't called since. Not once. She posts. I see it. Not on purpose. Sometimes her public profile pops up. New apartment. Mismatched chairs. 2 part-time jobs. Dog still healthy. No mention of the man who paid for her failed classes, her phone bills, her car. No mention of the stepfather who once skipped a week of meals so she could keep her spot in a course she dropped 2 months later. But that's okay. Because here's what I've learned. Some debts don't get repaid. Not with money. Not with apologies. Not even with time. Some debts just rot where they were buried, in silence. My apartment is quiet. Not lonely. Just quiet. I keep things simple now. I eat what I buy. I clean what I mess. I wake up without dread. Fall asleep without resentment. I see coworkers more. I take longer walks. Sometimes I read old messages from Claire thanking me for being her rock. For putting up with everything. Words are cheap. Especially when they cost me years. She meant them once. I believe that. But belief doesn't pay interest on what was taken. What do I miss? Sometimes the smell of her hair. The sound of the front door clicking shut behind Amanda when she came home too late. But mostly, I miss the idea that I was building something real. That's the cruelest part. The realization that you spent years constructing a future that never planned to include you. So what's the lesson? Simple. You can't save people who write you out of the story. You can't invest in a family where your name's just a silent donor. And you can't keep calling it love when it only flows one way. I gave. For 6 years. Not because I had to. Because I believed it mattered. But the truth is, you don't get credit for presents when they've already decided you're disposable. So I withdrew. Not in anger. Not in vengeance. But in clarity. Now the bills go unpaid. The dinner's uneaten. The silence returned to sender. And me? I live on my terms. No one else's name on the mailbox. No one else's future riding on my back. Let them learn what I already did. Contracts matter. Names matter. And if you leave someone off the paperwork, don't be shocked when they stop showing up to carry the load. So now I ask you, whoever's still listening at the end of this, was I wrong? Was I cruel for cutting ties they never wanted to strengthen? Or was it the only way left to make them understand that love without respect isn't love at all? Would you have stayed? Or would you have finally let the silence speak louder than sacrifice?